Hey, y'all. Not much has changed here in the past 5 minutes.
We're going to be very proactive this week and film all the vlogs at once.
Yeah, it was already set up. So,
Yes.
here we go.
All right, so...
We're still pretty angry from the last one.
Incredibly long rant. But anyways...
We're going to make this short, though. It's going to be like, boom, 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 boom.
Yes, so... First question is long, but we'll boil it down. Basically, they said, while we love that the things that you guys work on stick to mythology, and you don't make things up, there are some cases where there is no solid answer in mythology, such as who the previous 8 generations of Tuatha that were not there by the time they got to Ireland were. So how do you deal with things like that? Do you try to stop players from asking about them? Do you make the most educated guess you can? What do you do?
That's a story thing. Like, whenever there's it's kind of like asking, how do you play Zeus? Well, I mean, play him a bunch of different ways. He has moods, happening. He has actions, yeah. So...
You're going to want to...
There's like 1,000 Oceanids.
Yeah,
like
billions of them.
Yeah, you make up what's necessary for your story, and you try to make it fit as well as you can with stuff. But that's where the stories are going to come from, generally. Yeah. The things that aren't the same in your game as every other game.
The places where there is nothing in mythology for you to tell you the answer are the places where, as a storyteller, you have license. And if your players are just asking for no reason, like, oh, hey, who are the other Oceanids? It's perfectly fine to say, I don't know, you don't know. And unless they decide to go out and find the Oceanids, then it's not a problem. Yeah. You don't have to worry about it. But if it's something that you want to be part of your story, or that your players make part of the story by going out and checking it out, then you get to make some calls as a storyteller. What's going to be coolest for my story? What's going to fit with what's already happening? Use the little bits of scraps of mythology you have, but if there isn't anything there, then that's your job as a storyteller to make up something cool.
If players are just asking to ask, and they're just being asses.
Yeah, tell them, if you have mystery, then you don't know.
Yeah, you're gonna find out, or you go talk to people. If they want to work it into their story on their own time, then that's cool. But
yeah, because as little heroes or even demigods like gods, they're not gonna know all that stuff necessarily without going out and finding out, unless they have like an insane intercult role, and at that point, that's when you're gonna make your choice about what you're telling them.
No, but then you're still not gonna tell them everything. You're gonna say, I want the camera. Get me in the frame. You're gonna say there's a bunch of them, and I'm not gonna tell you all of them. And but your character knows all of them, and there's only so much I can do for you.
Yeah, you're gonna want to come up with something more specific, or go and find out for yourself. So it's a combination of make sure that it's something that matters to your game in the first place, and then if it does, then you get to make that decision because you're a storyteller. And then our other questions today are some of those specific questions, kind of how we would handle those things or how you might handle them. John's running it out because he's cooking, because we spent too long in the last vlog. But our first of those questions is, what do you think happened with Cuahuitlicac? The Centzonhuitzhanua and Coyolxauhqui are obviously probably not happy with him. And for those who don't know, in the myth of Cuahuitlica's birth, his mother Cuahuitlicac had conceived of him from a ball of feathers that fell from the sky. And so Coyolxauhqui, his sister, and their 400 brothers had decided that she had been, a loose woman, and they were to punish her by killing her. And so they go and charge up there to go kill her, and Cuahuitlicac is born in the nick, depending on the story, either in the nick of time to kill all of them and save her, or she gets beheaded, but he's still born and kills all of them. But earlier than that, there's a mention that one of the brothers of the 400, which is Cuahuitlicac, actually warned them, or he went to warn his mother, and Cuahuitlicac heard him because he was in her womb. So the question is, that guy that warned him that was coming, where is he? What happened to him? He obviously wasn't entirely siding with his siblings, but then they don't tell you really where he went.
Story question.
It's up to you. Are you going to use him? Because he could be a really cool character.
Yeah, if you're going to use him, whatever way he is most useful, it should probably, to your players, be completely ambiguous, so that you can get a lot of story stuff out of it, but it could go either way.
Yeah, it's obvious. You have the possibility that he was spared because he warned them, and so he's just been kind of in... But, the Aztecs aren't real nice to traitors, so even if you warn them, it's still kind of not okay. So he may just be kind of in some dungeon somewhere, or, not allowed to hang out with the other Aztec gods. Or he could have still marched with his siblings, warned her that it was going to happen, but still went with his siblings, and so was killed by Cuahuitlicac, like all of them. So he could still be in the Star Realm with all the rest of them. It really depends on whether you think he's something you want to mess around with, or whether you think he's best left as one of the many NPCs that went down in that particular scenario. If he is in the Star Realm, then you have the questions of, is he with his siblings? Did they find out that he was a traitor? Are they going to, try to kill him, or is he like in a dungeon that the Moon Titan, Coyolxauhqui, has him in a dungeon, and you have to try to save him from her, and maybe you could bring him back to the fold. You have a lot of options, so pick the one that makes the most sense and run with it.
Or if you don't need it in your story, don't use it at all. Like don't break your head trying to figure out where everything is and what everything is, unless it's necessary.
It's
for the
another
story.
thing where if a player says, "Oh yeah, what happened to that guy?" Who knows? You go find out, or
you
you're not going to know.
You have a nice out of character conversation about all the things that could have happened, but
and then
there's no definitive answer.
Yeah, and if the character's smart enough to know those possibilities, they can try and follow up on them. And if they don't, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So then the other one we have is somebody mentions there was a scenario in the White Wolf forums a while ago about gods of different pantheons but with the same purviews. So like Morrigan and Ares or Apollo and Amaterasu having children together. Is that possible, especially for the more sexually free gods and goddesses?
What actually happens is if any one of different pantheons has sex, their bodies have a way of shutting that down, and so then it prevents a legitimate interpantheon sexing.
Okay, so I think the most reasonable answer
that's
here...
a dated joke now, too.
Yeah, you're awful. I think the most reasonable answer is that they probably could, but it's really it's probably not likely.
But also, why not?
They could. There's this situation of, gods from different pantheons don't necessarily get along, and they have different virtues.
Generally speaking, maybe it's just Greek, but gods generally have sex a lot more with mortals.
And there's a reason for that, and it's because it is much less of a pain in the ass to have a kid that is a Scion or a mortal than to have a kid who's a god. When you have a baby that is a god, you end up with Hermes, who's stealing Apollo's cattle the first day he's born and making a huge mess for everyone else to have to deal with. Or you're dealing with Cuahuitlicac, who's like leaping out full formed and murdering 400 people. God babies are hard to deal with, and that's why gods usually sleep with mortals instead.
Yeah. No, you don't want to have birth to something that can kill you immediately if you take away its bottle.
Yeah, it's a pain. And, they do sometimes. Gods do have babies that are other gods, but it's a huge pain. And add to that the pain of then the divine politics of having that kid with someone in a different pantheon, and then you guys aren't necessarily going to agree on how to raise it. The baby might side with one pantheon or the other pantheon. You're not going to know ahead of time.
If you're not the king of your pantheon, the king of your pantheon's going to be like, it's mine.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take custody of that because it's important, or, we need to put that down. I don't know what's going to happen. It's messy. And, you're looking at this baby could literally be or do anything. That's already scary enough. If it could be or do anything in either pantheon, siding with anybody's enemies, or just be a crazy free agent that helps neither, that's a lot of stuff that is not a good idea. And so you could have gods do it. They definitely could. But it seems unlikely. Gods that have health are probably going to just shut that down if they want to sleep with somebody from a different pantheon because it's not worth the headache. And if they do have it happen for whatever reason, everybody's going to go to DEFCON 1 to deal with it. It's not going to be an isolated incident no one worries about. If the Morrigan and Ares have sex, that is going to be a shitstorm that everyone is going to have to deal with. The Tuatha have a history of just putting the Morrigan's kids down because they're horrible abominations, and the Dodecathian are going to have, Aphrodite's going to be pissed off, Zeus is going to be like, what are you doing? Maybe I need to get involved. It's going to be horrible. You could definitely do it. And then you have also the aspect of many pantheons being kind of racist. And, if you have a baby with a different pantheon, are you some kind of horrible race traitor? That baby's never going to be accepted either place. The example of Apollo and Amaterasu, they would probably really like each other, but I don't know if they're going to have babies together because that's, that would be polluting the Japanese royal line, so they're not going to do that. But it's just, there's so many, many considerations that, you're pretty much only looking at gods that don't pay any attention to politics doing that. And also, they usually have handlers that pay attention to politics for them.
Also, a lot of gods of racism is pretty
up there.
High.
Yeah.
So, if it works in your story, or if you need it for your story, fine, whatever. It can totally happen. We're not going to be the judge of what makes sense when it comes
you
to
might
that
have a really
thing.
great reason for it, and we just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So.
But I think it's messy, and it raises a lot of questions. So even if you use it in your story, you have a bunch of work to do, answering a lot of questions. And a lot of politics stuff.
Oh, and on the off chance that you're asking this because you want to play a Scion who's the child of two different gods from two different pantheons,
no,
that's not going to happen.
Bad.
That kid, first of all, that kid would be a god unless the mother Avatar down for 9 months, and she's not going to do that in the middle of the time war. There's just no time.
I don't know if she have to Avatar down for the full 9 months.
But it's still, you're trying to special snowflake yourself too much. Don't do it. You're not going to get both pantheons' powers. You're not going to get influence with both pantheons you didn't have, unless you have a really great reason for this, and I can't think of one.
There's none. You can't do it.
Yeah.
No deal.
it's something that maybe could happen for story purposes, NPCs, whatever.
Sure.
It's not a good backstory for your Scion.
No, it's not good for player. It makes the rest of the table not balanced. It's bad.
Yeah, you're a Scion. You are fancy special already. You don't need to do kind of crazy bullshit like that. Yeah, so just pick a Pantheon and run with it. And, you can always make friends with the other Pantheon later without having to be their blood child.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get to be a Wendigo Metis, half a Morrigan
with no
Black
Metis
Spiral
difficulties.
Dancer. Yeah, with no Metis difficulties because you're
Who
born
is
under the
also-
special new moon.
Yeah,
Who's
has
also
access to the
vampire.
changelings.
Yeah.
No. All of that, don't do it. Bad.
No, you're horrible. Although
But if
you
you're
may
just
not
asking
have
about
been a
NPCs,
suitor at all, so, yeah,
then
fine.
you're fine. No problem.
Yep. So there you go.
So there you go. Those are kinds of the same ideas of, make your own decisions. If there's nothing to go on, then you just come up with your own thing and make sure that it makes sense with your story and the myths you are using, but you're a storyteller. That's your place to shine as making a story for them that isn't already written.
Yep.
So enjoy that, and I think we're going to do a short blog today to make up for last
Yeah.
week. So,
Boom. So if you put them
Bam.
together, it's still a crazy long blog.
yeah, they'd both be too long
Yeah.
still. But
Be like an hour. So thanks. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to December. It's cold as balls. Yeah, that's about it.
yeah, so thanks everybody.
Subscribe.
And
Do the things.
we'll
Go to YouTube and like us.
We'll see you
We
next
like
time.
to be loved.
We do. We know.